At the park today, but not in the playground area. There's a lot of people like playing soccer in that area right now, so at least for now, I'm to stay away and do kettlebell and steel mace movements. So starting off with on the steel mace, doing 360 drop. I'm gonna do the 5. Supposed to go like this, and then move to single arm 360s for 3, and switching sides. With the kettlebell, to snatch, and I don't really know the name of this movement, but I'm going to bend down till my palm touches the floor and look up at the kettlebell. Vertical snatch, other side, and repeat. I'm gonna do this for 5 each side. The kettle bending and touching the floor and getting back up requires a lot of shoulder stability, core stability. So yeah, this was my third set. Gonna do 5. Another thing about being at this part of the park is that like the sun shines here, so there's no sun at the moment, and I want to absorb as much sunlight as possible. I'll just set on and let's see to mind while I sit. One thing you want to be mindful of one of the first times I didn't fully understand the path steel mace was gonna take, and I ended up doing my one time and shin another time. So yeah, got one more set remaining of this and this thing. So for the next set of things, as usual, starting off with a 360, going for 3, then doing 3 curl to presses, switching sides, I'm gonna repeat this for 3 times on each side. And then with the kettlebell, doing something really similar to the previous kettlebell exercise, but I'll show you the difference. So, starting off with the tactical snatch again, and again, like the previous one, I am going to look up at the kettlebell, but instead of leaning down, I'm going to squat down to touch the floor. Going for 5 each side. So the weights that I'm using are 15 pounds on the steel mace and 25 pounds on the kettlebell. The weights themselves aren't like super heavy, but by adding additional components to the movement, increasing the duration for which I'm performing the exercise, doing variations that require the full body and a lot of stability and core activation, the movement, the weight is not like it becomes a challenging weight because of the nature of the movements that I'm doing. And just in general, like, I know when I first started lifting, there was this thought process in my head that, like, if I wasn't going heavier at an exercise than I was doing the last time I performed the exercise, I was not improving, or I was getting worse. But there is something about perfecting a lift at a lower weight, and the analogy I like to draw for that is, so while playing basketball, sometimes it happens as you're shooting, like let's say you get farther away from the rim, sometimes like it requires a little bit more force to shoot the ball. As you keep trying to apply that force, sometimes you get tired, and then your form kind of suffers, and you don't realize it in the moment, but you're keeping on shooting, and for whatever reason you keep missing. And then the way to kind of reset that is go closer to the rim and then just get shots in really close to the rim. At least that's what I would do. And what that helped me do is kind of reset my form a little, and then when I went back to shoot from a faraway distance, it felt like my form kind of corrected itself again. And so the similarity between that and lifting is sometimes while lifting heavy constantly, you start developing like bad habits to where you do anything in your power to kind of lift the weight up. And depending on the lift, that can show up in many different ways. And instead of keeping on trying to go heavy, if you lower the weight and then instead try to really like focus on the biomechanics and make sure your form gets perfect, then when you go back to the heavy weight, it usually comes up easier. Usually not within the same workout, but essentially, you're honing in on your form. So when I'm using lighter weights in in these kinds of exercises, what I think also ends up happening is I'm able to correct any like bad habits and really focus in on the form required and all the other stuff required to lift efficiently. And yeah, I think it's worth spending quite a bit of time at lighter weights and just kind of perfecting the craft instead of always trying to go heavy. yeah, gonna do this for 5 sets. And on to the next thing. So for the first exercise of, I guess, the next set of movements, doing a suitcase hold single arm steel mace 360. So holding it a little above the bottom because it's longer and it's harder to handle, I guess. I'm gonna do a 360 to a lunge. I'm gonna do that 5 times. And then switching sides after 5. And then with the kettlebell, going to adopt a wide stance with the kettlebell in the middle. Going to do a tactical clean and then a Cossack squat. And then tactical clean to switch sides and Cossack squat other side. I'm gonna do that for 5 each side. The floor here is uneven. Whew. That exercise is really good. Any kind of Cossack squat variation to kind of open up the hips. It takes the groin muscles, abductor muscles, through like a loaded stretch position, which really helps with the mobility of opening up your hips. And with the suitcase hold 360s is at play. So the act of holding kettlebell forces like your traps and core to stay active, and then regular 360s hits the lats, serratus, shoulders, and then lunging involves the legs. Which again, between both these movements, pretty much the whole body gets worked. And yeah, like I think it's good to do movements that force your whole body to work as a unit in different ways. Yeah, I'm gonna do this for 5 sets and then on to something else. So moving into some kettlebell juggling and chat. Yesterday the audio got messed up at this section It felt like when I was juggling, I was making a point that came out more naturally than the voiceover I did after. But hopefully, if anyone listened to what I said, it made sense. I hope the wind also doesn't mess with the audio like while speaking. It is what it is. But yeah, let's just start with the first sequence. Whatever. Not bad. Trying to combine my regular moves with a little bit of movement, and I noticed that I'm still pretty awkward at it, and I'm not able to correctly position my body in order to make the movements look and feel smooth. A lot of activity at the park today. A lot of kids playing soccer, a lot of kids playing baseball. Another weird thing is people are yelling Aussie, 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 which I thought was an Australian thing. But I don't know why they're doing it in Canada for cheering a local baseball team. But, you know, just interesting. Wow. Oh well. There's some people looking to play soccer. Let me move my setup. I'll move. Alright. At a different location. Not a much different location. Same general area. Move my stuff around a little bit to make some room for dad and his son to play soccer or practice soccer. I don't know, is that the same thing? Practice, play. Play is practice, practice is play. Yeah. Is there anything else I want to say? Let me do a sequence and then let's see if anything comes to mind. So when I used to play basketball a lot more seriously, I would notice certain habits form within myself. Like, I'm a left-handed shooter, but while dribbling, I prefer going to the right. So most left-handed shooters usually prefer going to the left, so that they go to the left and then the angle just comes naturally with the left hand. And most right-handed shooters like to go right because it's easier to kind of go with the right and lay up with the right hand. And in any case, the reason I bring that up is when I do juggling, I kind of notice myself being better at certain moves with certain hands, and as much as possible I try to even it out and try to be as ambidextrous as possible. And even while doing my sequences, one of the things that I think about is how many times have I done a certain move on one side, and then it's not always 100% accurate, but as much as possible I try to even out the moves on each side of the body within a sequence or even within a juggling session. Wow. I find my juggling style to be not very rhythmic but more powerful. Like, I'm just trying to rotate the thing a lot and as much as possible. And I'm almost like, sometimes when I try to do the triples, I don't necessarily get like all the force from my hips. Sometimes it feels like I'm muscling with my hands, which is not ideal. Like, my reaction time when I do a behind the back tap back on the left side is so much slower. Like, it might not be easy for it to be apparent on video, but personally I feel it big time. Whatever. That was pretty good. But see, so yesterday I was talking about how the human brain kind of works like an AI, where you do a movement and you notice the differences, and then you try to make corrections within the way you do something, and then try to make that difference smaller. So right now, that awkwardness that I felt, that moment where I had my leg in the way, is now the difference in my head, and now it's up to my body and me, like my mind, to account for those differences and fix the movement patterns in order to make that look more smooth. Essentially, that's self-criticism. Like, you need a certain amount of ability to criticize yourself objectively in order to, get better at whatever thing you're trying to get better at. Had that go too wide. What else is going on? It's Friday, so it's the weekend. There may not be a video on either Sunday or Monday, so I want to take one of these days in the weekend to like do a super deep cleaning session of my apartment. There may still be a video on both days, I don't know. I'm just kind of putting it out there. If anything, it'll probably be like a juggling and chatting session exclusively, because that'll be the easiest to edit, because I can just leave the camera running and talk into the camera as I'm juggling, and then just put that out. When there's a lot more clips, it becomes a little harder of a process to do. Well, not a harder process, just a longer process. As far as diet, today had 2 Starbucks cappuccinos made with whole cream and not milk. For whatever reason, coffee shop milk doesn't sit well with me, so I just order cream in my coffee when I order from outside. And I had them put 3 Splenda packets in it to sweeten it up. I didn't have my usual tea though. The reason for picking coffee this time was that it felt like I needed just a little bit more of a kick to wake up today. That was pretty close to hitting my feet. Man, I'm not able to fire. Like the explosiveness is kind of low today. Yeah, my coordination is a little off. Went to grab the thing too quick. Alright, let's try to slow things down a little and make sure, like I feel like my force isn't coming from the hips, it's coming like I'm not getting as that drive that I'm supposed to. I hope the wind doesn't blow the camera down. Alright. This is getting annoying. Let me try to relax for a bit. So yeah, had those 2 coffees, then had 1 pound of ground beef with some spices and tomatoes and cheese and barbecue sauce. I've been growing tomatoes in my backyard for the past 2-3 months, and so now I finally harvested 2 red tomatoes 2 days ago, and I used 1 tomato yesterday and 1 tomato today. So yeah, there is something more tasty about using your own tomatoes that you've grown yourself. So that was kind of cool. Feels like there's a lot of commotion in the air. There's a lot of wind. The cops are doing whatever. There's so many kids running around, so many dogs running around. Alright, I need to focus. Come on. What the hell is going on? I don't know, on days like this, I usually don't like to push the envelope because when you're trying to do kettlebell juggling, as cool as it looks to a certain degree, it's like you're throwing a heavy object around, and more often than not you're safe if you do it right, but when your body isn't firing the way you want it to fire, then inevitably your body is not going to be in the optimal position in order to do something, and I'm just putting myself at risk, I would say, maybe. But that's no risk, no reward, I would say. Yeah, and if you enjoy the thing, if you enjoy doing the activity, I say do it anyway. Like, people do skydiving, and skydiving comes with its own set of dangers, and no matter how much you try to logically explain to a skydiver that, hey, you're putting your life in danger, the fact that it's fun makes them keep doing it. So just because something has a risk of injury or could make someone get hurt isn't enough of a reason, I would say, to stop doing something, especially if you like doing it. With kettlebell juggling, it's not I would say people should try it out if they enjoy watching it or they think it's interesting, but it's not necessarily I wouldn't say there's if you don't want to do it, probably don't do it. Come on. Alright, last try. After that I'm done, because this is getting pitiful. That was better, but I'm still not feeling it. Yeah, let's move into some abs or something. That juggling session was subpar, and I'm not really happy with it. I dropped it a bunch of times, but it is what it is. Moving into some abs with the kettlebell and steel mace. I'm just going to cycle through some exercises for 10 to 15 minutes, and yeah, I'm just going to leave the camera recording as I do it. So for the first one, I'm going to hold the kettlebell up with one hand, legs above, and do alternate knees to chest. We're gonna switch sides. Now going to repeat the same movement with the steel mace, but since it's the steel mace, there's going to be a slight variation. So I'm going to hold it like this with the weight on one side, and I'm going to make it more challenging by having the weight further away from my body. Oh God. Having the weight further away from the body really challenges the abs like so much more. Then I'm going to go back to the kettlebell. I'm kind of just freestyling abs. I'm just coming up with exercises in my head and doing it as I finish the next one. So with the kettlebell, just gonna do some Russian twists for 5 each side. Yeah, sure.
Oh, good. He's very zesty with his coaches on. I'm joking, I walk out already. I lift weights.
Yeah. He was just telling, well, first, I don't know if it came out or came through on camera. First, he asked me if I could teach him how to lift, and then he was telling his friends that his deadlift max was 450. I don't know. I'm not so impressed by 1 rep maxes anymore. Like, sure, it's like an interesting feat or an impressive feat, but like most people who can lift those amounts of weight, like not everybody, but quite a few of them. Well, first off, they use steroids, which I'm not against, but it definitely takes that to be able to get into the 800, 900 pound deadlift range for most people. And then they're also like so big and rigid and are always like complaining about feeling tight and stuff. And I don't the idea of lifting a heavy weight for 1 rep used to be appealing to me, but as time goes on, like I value the ability to move freely without pain so much more than any of that. And that doesn't mean that I'm weak, but it's like it really depends on what you're trying to go for. Like I don't think any 100-meter sprinter deadlifts over 400 pounds. And yeah, so it's like, what do you value more? I'm not saying it's bad to do that. Like if doing that is what you value more, then you should go ahead and do it. But if that isn't your goal, like if the reason you got into fitness is, I guess, for one, aesthetics, but also like being able to move around and feel like, people do get into fitness for health, and a huge part of health is just being able to move. And so if one of the side effects of your workout is moving hurts, then I don't think it's ideal. All right, next exercise. So I'm going to keep it in shoulder rack position and do flutter kicks. Switching sides. Then with the steel mace, I'm going to do away from me. Bring both my knees to chest. For 5 reps. And then flutter kick for 5. Switching sides.
Okay, just a sec.
What other exercises come to mind? I mean, sure. I mean, I already did a version of this. So I recognize that I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to the voice in my head. Essentially, what my brain came up with was this, and what I was saying was this was really similar to the first exercise I did with the kettlebell. But then I recognized that the voice in my head can't be heard on microphone, so it just comes off weird when I'm saying random things in response to the voice in my head. All right. Let's do unilateral sit-ups with a shoulder press. Should I use? I'll use the steel mace for that. Switching sides. What other exercises can I do? Okay. So I'm gonna hold up. Do oblique twists for 10 on one side. Switching sides. Crescent moon today. Looks pretty. And the clouds look pretty too. I wish there was some way I could like turn the camera and make it look at the clouds while I was saying it. But whatever. You know what? I think that's it for abs. I'm just gonna walk around and jog around a little, get some free flowing movement in. And yeah, that'll be it for today's workout and video. See you all tomorrow.